Ever found yourself gnawing on your nails during a tense movie, and then instantly regretting it? Yeah, you're not alone. Nail biting is one of the world's most common habits, and also, honestly, one of the weirdest. Why do we do it, even when it grosses us out? Let's chew on that for a bit, pun intended. Nail biting isn't just a random tick. For many people, it's a deeply ingrained habit, one that often starts in childhood and can persist for years, sometimes even decades. You might notice yourself doing it during a tense meeting while waiting for a text or even just zoning out in front of the TV. It's so common that it's easy to dismiss as a harmless quirk, but there's actually a lot more going on beneath the surface. In fact, nail biting is just one example of a much larger group of behaviors that psychologists have studied for years. These habits are called body-focused repetitive behaviors, or BFRBs for short. BFRBs are a group of related behaviors where a person repeatedly damages their own body, often without even realizing it. Nail biting, hair pulling, and skin picking are some of the most common examples. While these actions might seem minor or even trivial, they can have a real impact on a person's physical health, self-esteem, and daily life. Psychologists have found that BFRBs are surprisingly widespread, affecting millions of people around the world, regardless of age, gender, or background. And while they might look like simple bad habits, they're actually much more complex, involving both psychological and biological factors. So what actually triggers these behaviors? For most people, it starts with a feeling: stress, boredom, anxiety, or even just a sense of restlessness. Maybe you're sitting in traffic, feeling overwhelmed by a deadline or just trying to pass the time. Your mind starts to wander, and before you know it, your fingers are in your mouth. Sometimes you might not even notice you're doing it until someone points it out. These triggers can be emotional, like feeling nervous before a big presentation, or situational, like watching a suspenseful movie. The urge to bite your nails can sneak up on you in all sorts of situations, and it's often a way to cope with uncomfortable feelings or to fill a moment of inactivity. But why do we keep coming back to these habits, even when we know they're not good for us? The answer lies in the way our brains are wired. When you bite your nails, you're not just responding to a trigger, you're also getting a reward. That reward is usually a sense of temporary relief. Maybe your anxiety fades for a moment, or you feel a little less bored. Your body relaxes, your mind quiets down, and for a brief second, everything feels a bit more manageable. This cycle, trigger, action, reward, creates a powerful loop that can be hard to break. Over time, your brain starts to associate nail biting with feeling better, even if it's just for a moment. When you bite your nails, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine, the same chemical that makes you feel good when you eat chocolate or get a compliment. That's why it can feel so satisfying even though you're literally chewing on keratin, the tough protein that makes up your nails. It's a quick fix, a way to self-soothe in the moment. But over time, this cycle can become automatic, making it harder and harder to stop. Understanding that nail biting is part of a larger pattern, a body-focused repetitive behavior, can be the first step toward breaking the habit. It's not just about willpower or self-control, it's about recognizing the triggers, understanding the reward, and finding healthier ways to cope with stress and boredom. So next time you catch yourself biting your nails, remember, it's not just a random tick. It's your brain's way of trying to help you feel better, even if it's not the healthiest solution. It's a loop: trigger to action to reward, and like any habit, the more you do it, the more it sticks. Let's get one thing straight. Biting your nails isn't some weird personality flaw, or a sign that you're broken or lacking in willpower. In fact, it's one of the most common habits out there. So common, you'd be surprised by just how many people do it, and how often. Studies show that over 20 to 30% of people bite their nails at some point in their lives. That's not just a handful of folks. It's millions, spanning every age, background, and walk of life. From little kids nervously waiting for their turn in a school play, to teenagers stressing over exams, to adults in high-powered jobs, even CEOs in boardrooms, nail biting doesn't discriminate. It's a habit that cuts across cultures, professions, and generations. Some people find themselves biting their nails during tense meetings, when the pressure is on and everyone's watching. Others do it absent-mindedly while scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, not even realizing their fingers are in their mouths. It can happen while you're stuck in traffic, watching a scary movie, or just waiting for a text to come through. For some, it's a response to stress or boredom. For others, it's just a way to pass the time. And here's the thing, there's absolutely no age limit on nail biting. It's not just something kids do and then magically outgrow. You'll find people in their 70s or 80s who still catch themselves nibbling at their nails, just like they did as children. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a suit and tie, a school uniform, or pajamas at home, nail biting doesn't care about your age, your job, or your status. It's a universal habit and it can be surprisingly persistent. So, if you've ever felt embarrassed or alone because of your nail biting, know this: you're in very good company. Millions of people from all walks of life are right there with you. There's nothing classy about self-destruction, but there's also nothing shameful about being human. Have you ever caught yourself biting your nails in the middle of a tense moment, maybe during a big meeting or while waiting for important news? It might seem like just a bad habit, but there's actually a fascinating reason behind it. Turns out biting your nails might be your brain's low-budget coping mechanism. A quick fix it turns to when things get overwhelming, or even when things are just a little too quiet. This seemingly simple act is actually a window into how our minds try to manage stress, anxiety, and even boredom. When you're feeling emotionally overloaded, maybe your heart is racing, your thoughts are spinning, and you just can't seem to sit still, your brain is searching for a way to bring things back to normal. Nail biting, or onychophagia as it's known in medical terms, is one of those little tricks your brain pulls out of its back pocket. It's a way to channel all that nervous energy into something physical, something repetitive, and oddly enough, something soothing. But here's the twist: it's not just stress that triggers this behavior. Sometimes when you're understimulated, like sitting through a long, boring lecture or waiting for a slow-loading web page, your brain craves stimulation. It's almost as if your mind is saying, "Hey, give me something to do." And so you find yourself nibbling away, not because you're anxious, but because you're bored. Think about the last time you caught yourself biting your nails. Were you feeling overwhelmed by a mountain of tasks, or were you just zoning out in front of the TV? Maybe you were scrolling endlessly on your phone, not really engaged with anything, and your hand just drifted to your mouth. That's the fascinating part. Nail biting can be a response to both ends of the emotional spectrum. You're either overwhelmed, with your mind racing a mile a minute, or you're bored out of your mind, desperate for something, anything, to break the monotony. In both cases, your brain is looking for a way to self-soothe, to regulate your emotions, or simply to pass the time. So why does your brain choose nail biting of all things? It comes down to the habit loop. A cycle of cue, routine, and reward that's hardwired into our brains. When you feel stressed or bored, that's the cue. The routine is biting your nails. And the reward? A brief sense of relief, a momentary distraction, or just something to do with your hands. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. Your brain learns that biting your nails is a quick way to cope, even if it's not the healthiest option. It's almost as if your brain's like, you know what'd fix this? A mouthful of fingernail. It's not glamorous, and it's definitely not the solution your brain would choose if it had more resources. But it works, at least in the short term. So next time you catch yourself biting your nails, remember, it's not just a bad habit. It's your brain's way of trying to help you cope, whether you're overwhelmed, understimulated, or just somewhere in between. Now here's the twist: even people who find it gross still can't stop. Why? Because the disgust response kicks in after the reward. You've already gotten the dopamine hit before your brain goes, wait, ew. And the irony? That little wave of disgust might become part of the loop itself. There's evidence this habit might be tied to genetics or personality traits, like perfectionism. People who bite their nails often report they feel more in control afterward. Control from biting nails. Humans are wild. Okay, so how do you quit? Just willpower? Yeah, good luck with that. The real key is interrupting the habit loop. Try replacing it with something else, a fidget toy, chewing gum, or even squeezing your hands. The trick isn't to stop, it's to retrain your brain. So the next time you catch yourself chewing away, don't beat yourself up. You're not weird, you're human. And understanding the why behind it? That's the first step to biting the habit, before it bites back.